Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can be alerted when new content is released. Enjoy the video.
Your brain is of 100 billion neurons, right? And there's networks that are all kind of wired together. So you have a network to speak a language. You have a network to move a body part. You have a network to see certain shapes and colors. They're all just individual networks. And so when you're living by the hormones of stress and you're reacting to something and your body's knocked out of balance, when you're in stress, you can't predict the next moment. You have the perception that things are going to get worse. You have the thought that you're losing control. And so what happens is these chemicals switch on so that you're in survival and you're mobilizing enormous amounts of energy to prepare yourself for whatever it is in the environment. Short term, it's cool. Everybody can handle that. All organisms can adapt to short-term stress. But if the stressors keep coming and you're trying to control and predict everything in your life and you're switching your attention from your cell phone to your problems, to your husband, to the shopping, to, another person or your boss, another thing. Every person, every object, everything, every place has a neurological network in your brain. So as the hormones are arousing your brain and you shift your attention, if you were to measure the brain when it's doing that, you have different networks that are firing out of order. And you measure that, it's like a group of people that have no rhythm playing the drums at the same time.
Totally incoherent.
Incoherence. So when you're in a state like that, what happens mostly is you narrow your attention on the danger. You begin to focus on an object in your environment that's associated with that danger. So the stronger the emotion you feel from some reaction or condition in your life, the more you're going to pay attention to the cause. And if where you place,
vision,
so where you place your attention is where you're placing your energy. So you're giving your power away to your boss, to your problem. So then, what we've realized, and research shows it over and over again, that when you go from that kind of single-minded, narrow focus, it's only one type of focus, and all of a sudden you begin to expand your focus, you begin to open your awareness. You go from focusing on matter to focusing on energy, from focusing on the particle in quantum physics to focus on the wave. That when you begin to open your awareness and you focus on nothing, the moment you start sensing space, you're no longer thinking. And if you're no longer thinking, you're no longer analyzing. And if you're no longer analyzing, you're not activating those circuits in your brain. So your brain waves start to slow down, and the autonomic nervous system begins to merge. And the autonomic nervous system now wants to create order and wholeness and balance. And it says, Lisa's gone, Joe's gone, let's get in here and create order while they're gone, because what a mess. And all of a sudden it starts to synchronize different compartments in the brain. And what syncs together links together. And all of a sudden the brain starts functioning in a more holistic state. So we've seen in our work, when people start getting these different networks starting to synchronize, we can now predict what's going to happen. We can say, watch this. We can say to scientists that come and watch our work, watch what happens with this woman. Just keep watching. And all of a sudden, you see the right half of the brain talking the left half of the brain. All of a sudden, these two hemispheres come together. And the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites is called wholeness, oneness. And the brain has this psychic union, and at the same time, the heart bursts wide open. Why? Because the person's feeling so whole they no longer want anything. I mean, how could you want when you're whole? So now the heart is coherent and it's sending more energy to the brain. The brain is coherent, it's sending more information to the body, and all of a sudden the person's in a whole new state of being. So now, that was our research last year. Now this year, when we start seeing that level of coherence, all of a sudden now, we are going to levels of energy in the brain that have never been recorded in the history of neuroscience. That now a person is connecting to the field, and there are hundreds of standard deviations outside of normal in a brainwave state called gamma. Now they're super conscious, and not just one part of the brain. The entire brain is in this super conscious state, and whatever's going on between that person's ears is more real than this world we're sitting in right now. They're having a full-on sensory experience without their senses, and they can't make their brain do that. It's happening to them, and it's not happening with one person, two people. We have the same patterns over and over again, and when we now know that we can induce it, we now know how to create it, and we now know we can predict it when it's about to happen. I can say, watch this, she's going to pop, she's going to go. What do you mean? Just keep watching. And when a brain scientist looks at this, the first thing they think is seizure. They think they've never seen anything like this. And she's having a seizure. And I said, does she look like she's having a seizure? She's just totally connected, big smile on her face.
Yeah.
Her brain is just in a super, super aroused state, but the arousal is not coming from some threat in her environment. The arousal is coming from within. I mean, her energy is moving up into her brain, and the level of coherence, normal coherence, okay? Incoherence is like a group of people in an audience clapping at the end of a show.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
It's
so then
different.
normal brain coherence is like every five people clapping. Super coherence is when everybody's clapping in rhythm, and so that kind of order creates energy in the brain. Yes. So all of a sudden you see this scale of energy going up and it keeps building and keep building. The person is having a mystical experience that is going to transform them forever. They're not going to be the same person.
Yes.
And so many times we see like health conditions disappear in 1 second, because they're getting a biological upgrade in that state. Why? Because experience enriches the brain. And the end product of an experience is an emotion. And now new emotion is signaling the body, but it's not an emotion like chemical. It's electric. But you know, the simple way to see it is you have 19 different compartments that's being measured, and you have this like little thing, you see the lines all going like this. So, yeah, here's beta, then it starts slowing down, alpha, and then may go into theta. We have to figure out other ways to view it and other ways to read it, or scale it down so we can see it. And
fascinating.
yeah, it's way outside of normal. So when a person's in fear, like we're in normal beta brainwave patterns. We're awake, we're aware, and we're aware of our body and an environment and in time. But when you get aroused because of some threat, from beta you move into what's called high beta, a super aroused state. Now the brain is vigilant. It's scanning the environment to predict what's going to happen next.
Okay.
So high beta is like driving your sports car in first gear on the freeway. It's not going to last very long.
Right.
But when we see these transitions into gamma, gamma is actually a faster frequency than beta. And the person moves right through beta, right through high beta, right into gamma. And because it's so orderly, because most high beta is disorderly, but when we see that kind of order and they're passing through high beta, we know they're going to go right into gamma, and they're going to go into very, very high amplitudes of gamma. We don't see things how they are, we see things how we are, right? So the brain only perceives equal to how we're wired and how we emotionally feel. So imagine having a full-on sensory experience without your senses right now. What if your senses were heightened right now by 25%? Everything you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling. If your senses are heightened by 25%, your awareness of everything around you is heightened. Awareness is consciousness. You can't have consciousness without energy. So the brain gets a rush of energy, and now the experience lays the tracks down in the brain. And now when we come back to our senses, we are going to perceive a broader spectrum of reality. Now our brain is wired to perceive what has always existed, but we didn't have the circuits to perceive it. And now the person's getting a broader glimpse of reality. And science says we perceive less than 1% of reality. Well, now they're getting a glimpse. The sacred is so much grander than the mundane.
Yes.
And so in a moment, a person is now no longer in the labyrinth of life. They are looking at it from a different dimension. They know where they need to go on. They're no longer asking anybody for answers. They're getting a download from the field, and we actually call it a download. And with that download comes a biological upgrade. There's an upgrade because all disease is a lowering of frequency according to the quantum model. It's incoherence. The body is disorderly. It's slowing down on frequency. So now, once the system switches on, all of a sudden that person is drawing from the field. Get ready, because the body is going to take on a new frequency, and we see eczema disappear. We see tumors shrink. The disease can no longer exist because there's a change in the human operating system from energy, not from matter, but from energy.
From energy.
Yeah. How much of your waking day do you have your attention on matter? And how much of your waking day do you have your attention on the field or energy? Most people are local in space and time, and so all of their attention is on matter. So in our work, we say, when you take your attention off your body, you become nobody. When you take your attention off all the people in your life and your identity, you become no one. You take your attention off your cell phone, your computer, your car, you're in no thing. If you take your attention off the place you're sitting, the place you need to be, you're in nowhere. If you're not thinking about the past or the future and you're in the present moment, you're in no time. And that's the moment you become pure consciousness. That's the moment you're disinvesting all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality. Now, this three-dimensional reality is real to us because we perceive it with our senses. But the quantum is a realm that exists beyond the senses, and you could only experience it with your awareness. So then imagine...
It's just as real.
It's more real. So then, just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So then if I said to you, pay attention to it, connect to it, become more aware of it, stay present with it, moment after moment after moment, like a radio dial, your nervous system is tuning into frequencies. Sooner or later, you're not doing it with your body. If you're back in your body, you're back in three-dimensional reality. You have to get beyond your body, your environment, and time. Now, that's the moment you're on the bridge to the quantum field. But if you're going to connect to that field, there are greater and greater levels of order and oneness. So then as you begin to connect to that information and you look for it, and you tune into it, every time you feel something, your brain lays down a circuit. Why? That's what experience does. Now you're putting the circuits in place for you to perceive more of it. And if you're